Welcome.
Thank you.
One of the things that inspired me to invite you to this conversation is your new book, and the title, Age of Insight, the quest for understanding brain, mind, art, and culture is the quest that I've been on for most of my life. Here we're in the Neue Galerie in front of this wonderful Klimt portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer, which graces the cover of your book. I figured maybe this is the best place for us to have a conversation about brain, mind, art, culture. So with that invitation, let me let you start and we'll see where we go.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. This is a wonderful context in which to do this. This is a beautiful museum and this is an iconic painting. And I thought that from my point of view, this is a wonderful era to describe for several points of view. As a scientist, I've taken a reductionist approach. I focused on a large problem which interested me, problem of memory storage, which I thought was key to psychoanalysis, to psychiatry, and studied it in its simplest, most accessible form. And I thought I would do that here in trying to bring art and science together. And I thought one way to do that is to focus only on one aspect of art, portraiture, and in one period, Vienna 1900. I focused on portraiture because we have a better intellectual understanding of how faces are represented in the brain than for any other object, number one. And number two, I focused on Vienna 1900, not only because it is historically so interesting, period of Freud, period of Schnitzler, but also because these three artists, Klimt, Kokoschka, and Schiele, had significant insights into unconscious mental processes independent of Freud. So as a school, they shared features in common, an idea of going below the surface, deep into the psyche of another person.
When you wrote about that period in history, the medical school, the mentor to many of the people, the sort of conciliant culture, I said, well, Eric Kandel is a Viennese. He's a son of this movement. It's almost as like it's a part of who you are too. So I can imagine why the inspiration may have been so powerful.
Yes, I mean, I think my own psychological motivation, which I still don't understand completely, is complex. It's one, a great admiration of this period. Two, a seeing of this is a marvelous period, not only from the emergence of modernism and the important contribution that Vienna 1900 had, but this is a period in which there was a very productive interaction between Jews and Christians in Vienna 1900. So Klimt, who was not Jewish, painted a lot of portraits of women who were Jewish, and they supported him very importantly. And Otto Kallia, for example, a gallery owner who was one of the early gallery owners to become interested in the Austrian modernists, was of Jewish origin. So really very productive interaction between Jews and non-Jews in Vienna at that time, which is in contrast to the experience I had in March of 1938, yes, in which the Austrians turned viciously against the Jews. Yeah. So part of my repetition compulsion, my returning to this period, returning to Vienna, is an attempt to come to grips with what is sort of a post-traumatic stress episode in my life, right, that I handle it by mastering it. Yeah. So I was invited to come to Vienna in, I don't know exactly, 1988, to get an honorary degree from the University of Vienna. Wow, wonderful. And I thought I would use it as an opportunity to tell them what my real feelings about Vienna 1938 was. And after thinking about it a few days, I decided, don't be a schmagegi. They're honoring you, be decent, you can use another occasion. And I thought I would use it to learn about what Vienna contributed to modern medicine. Right. And I discovered Rokitansky, yes, who was really the founders of modern medicine. It was an enormous influence on Freud and indirectly on Klimt. Yes. So if we look at this painting, for example, one of the many striking things about it is that despite the fact it is very Art Nouveau, it has a lot of decorative detail, there are many, many modern touches in the painting. One, the painting is amazingly flat. This is a modern idea. Rather than creating an illusion of 3 dimensions, let's confront reality. We're painting on a flat surface. Why not show the flatness what it is and use that to power? And Klimt was one of the early people. Cézanne was beginning to do this also even before that, but Klimt was one of the early people to do this, number one. Number two, there practically is no difference between foreground and background here. In part of the flatness, they merge together. 3, Klimt's father was a goldsmith, so he was comfortable working with gold, and he went to Vienna at about this time and saw how richly gold was used in the mosaics. And finally, there's a lot of science in the painting, which many people don't realize. He read Darwin, and through Emil Zuckerkandel, whom he met in Bertha Zuckerkandel's salon, he learned a lot about biology. He learned about sperm and eggs, and he incorporated those motifs into his paintings. So if you look at her dress, you see they're decorated by these rectangular symbols. That symbolizes sperm for him. And you see in the center of the painting, these eye-shaped like structures, they're over. So this is a woman who is not only beautiful, but reproductively in the peak of her career.
That, I mean, was something that was illuminated by my reading of your book, is the biology and the context of that. The thing that, for me, Klimt also was the European fascination with Japan, screen painting, the gold leaves and all that. My first read on Klimt was, this was, you know, like Monet and many of the others who love the screens and the Japanese woodblock prints, there was also a global connection going on.
I think this is true. In his particular case, I think Ravana was particularly important. This happened just after the university murals were rejected, and he really turned away from doing mural painting and really started serious portraiture at that particular point. And the trip to Ravana made him see art in a new way. And since he was comfortable working with gold, having helped his father, he took readily to this. And this was the golden period, and some of his most powerful paintings were made in this period.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that inspired me for this conversation is the notion that people from different disciplines were talking to each other.
This is amazing.
About culture.
We want to recreate this.
Yes.
And that is that Rokitansky, who was a pathologist, put medicine on a scientific basis. Look, this is 1850, 1860. Skoda, a clinician he collaborated with, could examine a patient at the bedside. He could listen to his heart, he could listen to his lung with a stethoscope, he could percuss the chest, he could take a history, look at the patient, but he couldn't interpret many of the things that he saw. Noise would be coming from the lungs. Hard to know what that meant. Right. Noises were coming from different parts of the heart. Was that the normal opening of the aortic valve or the tricuspid valve or the mitral valve, or was it a diseased valve? The only way Rokitansky realized one could correlate what was happening at the bedside to what's really going on is to examine the same patient if they die at autopsy and correlate the clinical findings that Skoda had from a thorough examination of the patient with what you saw at autopsy. And if there's any question, Skoda would run fluid through the valves of the heart to see whether he could simulate what he heard at the bedside. This opened up modern clinical pathological correlation, which is the basis of the medicine we now practice. But he created a metaphor that drove all of these people. He said, truth is typically, commonly hidden from the surface. You've got to go deep below the surface to understand what's going on. Freud carried that theme forward. Enormously influenced by Rokitansky. He was a student at the University of Vienna Medical School when Rokitansky was dean, and incorporated that thinking into his own analytic.
And what I think art has done from the cave paintings forward is to present a surface and then a depth of meaning beyond just a decorative surface.